was dope.
You have now entered a very rare group of people in this country. You're in the ranks of Charlie Manson, Ted Bundy. You claim you didn't commit these murders, but you're right in there now as far as everybody else is concerned.
Serial killers do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Do you have emotions, Richard?
No comment.
Welcome back to Rufus Villain's True Crime Corner. Richard Ramirez, episode 2. What's up, Josh?
Yo, what's up? We're back.
Yeah, we had a really good response for the first episode. I was really happy about that. So we're covering the Nightstalker. This is like the end of his reign, his conviction, his death.
Yep.
That's where we're going from there. Like he was, like you guys followed the first episode, which I'm really happy about. Like anybody out there that has any questions, Google it, send me a message, and I'll give you any kind of knowledge I know.
Right.
So what we're going to start off with was the super cop. This is where we're starting off, the super cop. Frank Silerno. Does that you've heard it said differently, right?
Salerno, yep.
Salerno. So like that's one of the corrections I had to go with on our last episode. I said it differently, but it's Salerno. So the big thing is he was the cop. He was the cop that caught Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer.
Indeed.
So he's already been in this scenario more than once. Like he's gone against supervillains. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So he's the very first guy that starts putting together like footprints, fingerprints, evidence that has anything to do with any of the cases that have anything to do with each other.
Because nobody else was really working together as far as the local precincts.
Exactly. Like he's the very first one that's like, man, we gotta like share information. We gotta share information. You can't be like, we gain notoriety from cracking the case. You gotta share information because it's for the greater good.
Right.
So like I kind of got into this a little bit before we ended the last episode. Like he starts putting together footprints, fingerprints, which is a hard thing at that time because fingerprints there's no computer thing. It's somebody had to sit there with a fucking microscope and look at like the difference distance between finger ridges.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like so you literally, because it was at that point fingerprints were actually up to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could like compare fingerprints and like the distance between a ridge is this long and then like this little tiny shape. No, that's not the same. That's not the same. That's not the same. You get what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
Like it's literally like artists looking at somebody else's painting and like, no, it's not the same. But the thing is you get where I'm getting at.
I do, yep.
Yeah, so I brought this up a little bit on the last one. So Salerno starts going to different like occult clubs like we talked about, and he actually matches a footprint of the Avia footprints and matches the size and shoe print.
Right.
So like he's on to something at this point. And nobody wants to believe that he's on to something at that point because this is kind of something out of the scale of anything that's happened right at this point in American society.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Like prior to him was like Charlie Manson, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So at this point, we have Max and Lydia Needing. This is where he's actually starting to change MOs because he's always changing MOs. It's like he never. We brought it up in the last episode. He never brings his own implement.
Right.
It's like it's always like a little different. Like it just depends on like what's in the area, like whether it's a rock or a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So he assaults and shoots the husband and then assaults the wife. I'm going to leave it there. So at this point, he's like ramping up. Like I've said this like more than once. He's like ramping up. Like I've never seen like in my research, I've never seen a serial killer ramp up so frequently.
Yeah.
It's just yeah. Anyway, yeah, you guys can't see my hand, but I'm doing like yeah. But so this entire time in between killings, he's still robbing houses. He's still assaulting people on the street. Like I found one instance where he fucking actually on the street pulled a gun and robbed a guy for his wallet, that's just gonna, in today's society, that's just gonna put you more on the radar.
Right. Yeah.
If you like, if you're a serial killer and your face is, well, his face isn't known yet, but like, if your crimes are like crazy like that, what would you be thinking about, like putting a gun in somebody's face and fucking trying to take their wallet?
Yeah. It seems like an unnecessary risk.
Yeah, well, that's how he made his living, though.
Yeah.
He never had a job, well, other than the Holiday Inn.
Right.
He never did anything like that. So I'm going to get into the very first people to ever fight back. You know what I'm getting into?
I think so.
So the only people to ever fight back was Chris and Virginia Peterson. They were 36 and 27. So he breaks into the house. He shoots them, and because the thing is he's using such a small caliber weapon. It doesn't. That's the big thing about him is like his calibers. He's only ever used 22 to 25.
Right.
Like me right now could take 3 shots to the face from a 22 and it wouldn't kill me.
Maybe not to face, but
yeah. But well, he shot a lot of people in the face. Like so. They ended up fighting back. Like the husband actually dropped down and was like out of commission for a while. He started to go after the woman, and then the husband like stood up and fought him off, and he took off.
Nice.
Like he fucking took off. He's like, oh shit, like this guy didn't go down. I gotta bounce out of here. So next we get on to Alvers Aberwath. That's spelled Abawath. Aberwath. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So this is where he really starts getting into like swear to Satan. This is like really gets into when he's like in the act. He's like, swear to Satan, swear to Satan. And this is I said it a little bit before, but this is the exact assault to where the media gives him the name of the Nightstalker.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this is the exact actual assault to where he's named the Nightstalker. And he actually, one of the things I saw is he's actually one of the first serial killers in America that was to be given a name. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Like he was like one of the first to be like given like a moniker. Okay, so Silerno, I'm saying it wrong again. This guy, the Super Cop.
Yep.
I'm just gonna keep calling him Super Cop because I keep saying his name wrong.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so he calls a press conference, and this is the time that he's actually telling the press is like, we have a serial killer, and like people are like, no, there's no way this can be one guy. There's no way this can be one guy. And he puts together evidence and shows the media that there's 12 people that all link together. Like with the footprints, the fingerprints, the time of day, the MO. Well, like I said, the MO changes all the time, but this is the very first time everything like links together.
Yeah.
So like he's like, we have a serial killer. Like we got to take this seriously.
Yeah.
And like I said, nobody believed him, but he kept on all the evidence. He kept on like compiling the evidence, compiling the fingerprints, like which I said is like an art form at that point. Like, okay, imagine you went like this on the table and maybe smudged a little bit, maybe moved your finger a little bit. Like even today, it's not a completely 100% science because like if you touch something and then your finger moves like by a millimeter, this is one of the things I looked into. Like your fingerprint, every fingerprint is a fingerprint. Like I said, it's original to every human being. But like one tiny little ridge can be skewed by just a single movement of touching that surface. No fingerprint is perfect. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Like I looked into it, like because there's millions and millions and millions of people on the planet. Fingerprints, just like eye color, is gonna kind of start blending together. Like none of it's ever going to be, it's not taking DNA at this point.
Right.
Like it's the closest we have to taking DNA at that point. So at this point, like Ramirez is, okay, shit's getting fucking kind of heavy. So like, cause like he's all over the news and stuff like that.
Yep.
And he leaves town to go visit his brother in San Francisco. Or actually, I'm jumping ahead. He leaves to San Francisco. Later, leaves to go hang out with his brother in Arizona.
Yep.
That's what it is. I'm sorry. But during his time in San Francisco, he actually kills a guy named Peter Pan.
Oh, wow.
He was an Asian man named Peter Pan, and he was 66.
Yeah.
Here's the big thing: is like, if your last name was Pan, would you name your kid Peter? That's kind of. But like the big thing I went into with that was like, wherever he goes, he can't fight the compulsion. He just can't fight the compulsion to do a murder, to rob, to kill, to exact his like what do you call it, like superiority over somebody.
Yeah.
And that he just can't help it. So in that murder, he actually draws a pentagram on the wall and then writes Jack the Knife on the wall.
Okay.
Which is a Judas Priest line.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's still all into that music, and so, like Jack the Knife. I personally am not familiar with Jack the Knife or anything like that, but like he couldn't help himself, but like to leave town for a while because shit was hot, and then find somebody else to kill.
Right.
Yeah, like he's just one of those people that like I wish I could understand the mentality of somebody that has to like because I've been doing a lot of reading like psychology. Like there's a lot of like sociopathy that has to do with like one of the things I actually wanted to bring up. Like okay, as a kid, like we've talked about the McDonald triad before.
Right. Yep.
I have actually myself as a kid had 3 several heavy head traumas, and I've never killed anybody.
Yeah.
Like I've never killed. I've thought about it, but I've never done it.
That we know of.
So continuing on this after the Jack the Knife, and so he actually returns to L.A. Returning to L.A. was like a weird thing. He didn't want to do it because like he felt like the pressure. It was like, but then again, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no nothing. There was no like social media.
Right.
He didn't know while he was gone. Because he ends, between, I'm kind of jumping the gun. Like he went to San Francisco and then went to visit his brother in Arizona.
Okay.
So he was gone. Like
Right.
he wasn't in LA at all.
Yeah.
So he didn't know that his face was everywhere.
Yeah.
Because of the last murder we just talked about. Like his face was fucking everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so he ends up going to a convenience store, which actually one of the things I saw was the convenience store that he went to when he returned to LA.
Yeah.
Actually had a laundromat in it.
Uh-huh.
That's trivial. It just had a laundromat in it. And he picked up a newspaper that had his face on the front of it.
Yeah.
It had his face on the front of it, and he was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
So he ends up like taking off down the street.
Yeah. Well, so I read that when he got back in town, like you said, the cops had kind of posted his face everywhere.
Yeah.
And so
Well, it was
they
composite drawings
Yeah.
and like pictures from his driver's license that were
and
everywhere.
so they were expecting him to leave town, and so they actually had cops posted at the bus station expecting him to leave, and he actually returned into the same bus station while they were there looking for him to leave and got past them because they weren't expecting him to be returning.
Oh, that shows the arrogance. Like, because like when like I think it was Payson, Arizona.
Yeah.
That he went to visit his brother and like spent time with, and that's where kind of like stuff kind of like gets like lost in the loop. Like during his visit to San Francisco, making the kill of Peter Pan, and then coming back and deciding to leave to go visit his brother because he wasn't in L.A. at the time. Like the murders, one of the things I read, it was like the murders kind of like they stopped because he wasn't around.
Right.
And people were like still locking their doors, buying guard dogs, buying guns, and like so like the community was like on alert.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't happened in a while. It was just like with like BTK or Son of Sam. Like it didn't happen for a while, so everybody was like on alert.
Yeah.
So when he came back, he didn't realize, because like I said, there's no Facebook, there's no Twitter, there's no Instagram. He didn't realize that he was on blast.
Yeah.
He didn't realize he was on blast. So he showed back up, walked into this convenience store that was a slash laundromat
To buy coffee.
to buy coffee. Well, probably coffee and candy. Knowing this guy, and he saw his face on a newspaper, and the panic in his face, the panic in his body, I can only begin to imagine. Like, cause I remember being a little kid and doing something stupid, and then realizing that I was in trouble. You like imagine like the feeling of like your blood rising.
Oh yeah.
You're like, fuck. Like, what do I do? What do I do from here? So, like I said, he saw like the wanted posters, and what would you do at that point? Like, say if you were like in his position and you saw like wanted posters of yourself, like, what would
I
you
have
do?
no idea. Yeah.
So at the behest of like getting ahead of myself, before he walked into the store, he actually committed one more murder.
Okay.
Before like walking into that store, it was like literally like when he got into town. It was the husband's name was Bill Carnes, and all the stuff that I read, there was 3 different names for the woman. There was Carol Smith, Anise Eckersons, and Renata Gunter. Like, I don't know why there would be a discrepancy on the name of the wife.
Right.
But that's what happened before he decided to go into a store in broad daylight.
Okay.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say also one more thing I have. When he was in San Francisco, not to backtrack too much, but just a quick note. So when he was in San Francisco and murdered Peter Pan, the mayor actually released some really sensitive like investigation info that the LAPD was trying to keep quiet, specifically like his Avia shoes. And so then he sees the press release, and then he tosses his shoes and his gun over the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah. Because he thought that would like get rid of the
it
evidence.
would like exonerate him somehow.
Yeah. So in this particular thing with Bill Carnes, the wife, whatever her name it is, he says to the wife, I wrote down the woman, because he kills Carnes, assaults whichever woman of the 3 names that we have. He actually says to her, "You know who I am, don't you? I'm the one that they're writing about in the newspapers and the TV." So like he's at that point, he's like embracing, like I'm the Nightstalker. So at that point, he with the dead husband next to her, which is rough, he actually beats her and makes her say, "I love Satan." He actually beats her and makes her say it repeatedly. Mm-hmm. And that's a psychological like attack, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree.
Like her husband's dead next to her. Actually, no, he survived. The husband survived. I was looking at this. The husband actually lived. Actually, of 3 days after the fact. But then he ransacks the house, finds $400, looks at her and says, "This is all your life is worth. $400. I'm the Nightstalker." That's fucked, man. That's fucked.
Yep.
But so in this case, it was 13-year-old Jamie Romero. What you said she was changing a bike tire, right?
Yep.
This is the person that we previously referred to, saw him leaving the crime scene, and he was driving an orange station wagon and wrote down the license plate number.
Yeah.
And that definitely led to people like putting together that he was stealing cars, and that's all he ever drove was stolen cars. And again, this is prior to him coming back from Arizona and all that stuff. So what's the super cop's name? Silerno starts to put together more fingerprints. Find more fingerprints, more footprints, and this is at like the dawn of forensic intelligence, stuff like that. Because computers still at this point don't have like a database.
Yeah, specifically they used the fingerprint that was on the mirror of that stolen car a while back.
Yeah, the one where he drew the pentagram on it. Is that what you're talking about?
Maybe it's the same one. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Drew the pentagram and took off. So they find a new car with a fingerprint that I couldn't find the make and model. but it was another car with a matching fingerprint.
Yeah, I think that was the one that maybe he stole and got charged for the theft with.
I think so. You might be right. There's so much with this guy, man. There's so much. But there was a woman named Donna Meyer, Maire. She owned a hotel that Ramirez used to stay at, and she started like kind of like putting two and two together. Of like, man, like this guy comes and stays here when this crazy shit's happening. This crazy shit's, like she herself like started putting it together. Like anytime the Nightstalker's like he's here, and she actually recounted to Silerno. I can't say his name for some reason.
You got it.
But she actually recounted to him before, or actually after the trial. She was talking about a conversation that her and Richard had because he would stay there so much. He said, "Wouldn't you be surprised to find out that I'm the stalker?" Like that's a little creepy in and of itself.
Right.
So right here, the investigation fucking just like hits a fever pitch. Just hits a fever pitch. Like they're like matching footprints, they're matching fingerprints, they're matching MOs, changing MOs. Like Silerno is like super copying it all the way. Like he might as well be fucking Batman at this point. So Meyer finally identifies as like, yeah, that's him. That's him. So like she's like, this is his face. This is all the timelines line up. Like this is the guy. And again, like what we mentioned a little bit before, like he has no idea. He has no idea because he's out of town.
Yeah.
He's in Arizona. He's got no idea. So he ends up returning and walking into a convenience store like we talked before. So people like start staring at him. People like, he's like walking through LA and people are like staring at him like, is that him? Is that him?
Yeah.
Like he's like starts, you could tell when eyes are on you, man. You can tell when eyes are on you. So he's obviously like acting weird, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like we said a little bit before, he like picks up a newspaper and his face is right there.
Yeah.
He fucking takes off. He fucking starts running.
Yeah, so he tried to steal a car and kind of got foiled there.
Yeah, because the
crowd was coming after
it was
him.
mob mentality.
Yep. And so he tried to get on a bus, and then everybody recognized him on the bus. So he had to get off the bus, and then he was literally just running down the street.
One of the things I wrote down was like the police lines were blowing up because they were like, "Oh, there's this guy running through my backyard. There's this guy jumping over my back fence. There's what's going on here?" Like they're like police lines are just blowing up. So that's the most interesting thing is like the LA citizens are what brought Richard Ramirez down.
Yeah.
Like that's, because the cops weren't on, they didn't want to share information. They didn't want to be like, there was, I saw a thing that there was almost like 400 phone calls of like, I see the Nightstalker. I see the Nightstalker.
Yeah.
So mob chases him down. It was, I wrote down the street name, but so like the mob chases him down. They actually knock him down. And there's actually one citizen that beats him with a flagpole.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah. So straight up mob mentality. They end up holding him down. Until the cops show up.
Yep.
And then on his arrest, this is a quote from Richard Ramirez. "I want the electric chair. You should have shot me on the street. I did it, You guys got me. I'm the Nightstalker." Like that's like a legit quote from him. Like so he was caught. You know what I mean? Like that was just over a year and a half of activity. You look at Dahmer, it was like 11 years. You look at Geen, it was 6 years. Like it's pretty. Thing about Richard Ramirez is his escalation was so fast.
Yeah,
it was so fast. So he actually had a 4-year trial. His trial went over 4 years.
Yeah, well, so it was actually just delayed until January of '89, right?
Right. Yeah. That had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, because he like fired his lawyers and everything.
More than once.
Right. Yeah,
More
that's what
than
I mean.
once.
Yeah, that's why I said lawyers.
Yeah, he actually had 6 attorneys.
Oh yeah.
He actually had 6 attorneys, fired them over him feeling like they weren't representing him properly.
Yeah. So he was charged with about 14 murders and then 30 other felony counts. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I've got that here in a little bit.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, it's all good. So he has a 4-year trial. They actually spent over $2 million in his trial. To it was $2 million over like public defenders and court fees and all that stuff. Like that's actually unprecedented to spend that much in a single court trial at that time.
Yeah.
Like that's $2 million, man. He should have just been straight sent to the electric chair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially with inflation, what have you, like that's a lot of money.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Like inflation, it'd probably be, I don't know what the calculator would be, but it'd be a lot more now.
At least 5 times.
Yeah.
I think.
So like you said, it fired a bunch of attorneys, and he did 15 interviews. 15 interviews.
Oh, wow.
And because that was at the time, it was like right after Dahmer. And, like it was like serial killers, like we've talked about before, like the popularity, not quote unquote popularity, their notoriety has gone down a lot. And he was one of the golden age of serial killers. Like that's why he got so much press.
Yeah.
That's where we got the Black Brides.
Right.
Like so, like Ted Bundy and Ramirez, like were the golden age of Black Brides. It was like women that were they felt like they wanted to be with him, because like one of the things I saw is it's actually it's a psychological like predecessor, I think is what it's called, like where a woman wants to be with a dangerous person because they can protect him against other dangerous people. And, like Ramirez actually even got married in jail, which I'll get into.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was women literally fighting each other over trying to get seats in the public trial.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally fighting each other over like trying to get a seat in the public trial just to go in and sit there and be in the same room with him, which is pretty ridiculous.
I agree.
So there was actually over 3,000 potential jurors that were interviewed and dismissed because of like their opinion or whatever. Like 3,000, man.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Too.
So one jury member actually didn't show up. I didn't write her name down because her name was Julie something, but I didn't want to blast her name out. She actually didn't show up one day, and they went to her house and they found her dead, shot in the head at her home, and it was her husband that shot her. Yeah, there was over 100 witnesses that were interviewed. Over 100 witnesses.
Yeah.
Like whether like they saw him walking down the street or whether like they came across him in a bar or whatever.
Right.
Like just 100. That's dude, it's crazy. So I'm gonna get into like the very last little bits here. So he got married in jail to Doria Lioy. Loy.
Okay.
So they were married from 1996 to 2013 to the day of his death.
Right.
So he died at the age of 54 in jail of leukemia at Marin. It's Marin. Marin?
Yep.
Marin General Hospital. And basically, one of the things that I read was like the doctor that was in charge of his case was like, eh. So the other thing that like pops into mind is like the Hippocratic Oath at that point.
Yeah.
Like put yourself in that position. You're the doctor of Richard Ramirez. What would you do? Would you care? Would you care? Like, would you be like,
Well, I mean, and also
it's a life, but
yeah, it is. But in his defense, a lot of times, I would imagine that particularly in the prison system, like those sort of terminal diseases might get a little too far along before they actually try to treat them. Like if you look at like Capone, I remember,
right?
Like all his stuff was just way too far,
right?
Like syphilis and everything, like he was just way too far gone. So.
Well, he was actually sentenced to 19 death sentences at the electric chair in California. The thing is, the death sentence is like it's not right away. Like you got to sit on death row for a long time.
Oh yeah,
Like
excessively long.
Yeah, well, it's I kind of feel like that's like a part of the punishment, maybe.
Yeah, I
Like-
get that.
It's like sitting there and like, okay, I'm gonna die or whatever. But coming towards the end of this, he was his conviction was of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. He was sent to die in California in the gas chamber. I said electric chair earlier. I was wrong reading my notes. He was sent to die in the gas chamber. But his response to that was big deal.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
got 19 life sentences, right?
19 life sentences.
Yeah.
And he died at the age of 54, which is, just waiting on death row.
Yeah.
Died of lymphoma. I'm not sure what kind of cancer lymphoma is. I think it's lung cancer. I don't know.
I think it's lymph nodes.
Lymph nodes. Okay, yeah.
Well, I say it's fucking karma.
Yeah, dude. Like sit in jail for that amount of time and then don't even get to hit the gas chamber. Just God takes you out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to kind of give them a heads up for like what the next True Crime Corner is going to be?
Hell yeah, we're going to be doing John Dillinger.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm excited for that. Like,
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
yeah, like Parts Unknown. Tucson has a little bit of a story in that. Has a little bit of part to play in it.
Yeah.
And then the next one that I'm going to do is the California shootout with the Kevlar and all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
That should be interesting too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start looking into that, and because that actually led into where the LAPD got to start carrying larger caliber weapons and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that should be pretty interesting. So, but guys, thank you for bearing with us on this second Gold Star episode.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, and we love all of your comments, all of your criticism, all of your corrections. Like if we got something wrong, let us know.
Definitely, please.
Yeah. So it's Rufus and True Crime Corner. Thank you, brother.
Thanks. See you next time.
All right.